Lads, it's time. I can finally report some good news. I've been waiting to be able to say something positive for a very long time because so much of Doctor Who discussion of late has been uncertainty about the show's future, whether it'll continue, all of that kind of stuff. You know, I've basically said that we're essentially in a bit of a hiatus period for the show until, you know, things go back into production. However, we have had something said by BBC officially at last, which is something that I've wanted them to say for a very long time, and I'm so glad they finally have it. This is the one thing that I said would put my mind at ease, and the fact that they've said it is very reassuring. So we're going to get right into it. Subscribe if you're new, that'd be greatly appreciated. We're trying to get to 30,000 subscribers, and we are less than 1,000 subscribers away. And if this is anything to go by, there will be a lot more Doctor Who content on this channel to come. So let's dive right in. Doctor Who, BBC bosses talk about future of series and spin-off at TV festivals. BBC commissioners have spoken publicly for the first time about the future of Doctor Who, which has been in a state of limbo since the conclusion of its second series earlier this year, which ended with the departure of lead actor Ncuti Gatwa. I'm taking this from TV Zone, but it's being reported everywhere, Radio Times, all those other places. Gatwa's regeneration was tagged onto the episode finale following the star's late decision to leave the show, which forced a rewrite to reshoot the original ending of the series. Gatwa debuted in the 60th anniversary specials in 2023 and was the lead for 2 series and 2 Christmas specials. The uncertainty around the series has been caused by Disney's continuing failure to confirm whether or not it plans to renew its deal with the BBC for the international distribution rights. Because of this, it means Russell T Davies' vision of yearly Doctor Who hasn't been possible. Speaking at the annual Edinburgh Television Festival, BBC's newly appointed Director of Content, Kate Phillips, said when asked about Doctor Who, "Rest assured, Doctor Who is going nowhere. Disney has been a great partnership and it continues with The War Between the Land and the Sea next year," adding, "With or without Disney, Doctor Who will still be on the BBC." Later in the session, the BBC Director Content of Drama, Lindsay Salt, added, "There's no update at the moment on Doctor Who, but we will share as soon as we can." She says the BBC is committed to Doctor Who as one of its biggest brands, and the show is hugely important to us. Earlier this year, Tom Fussell, CEO of BBC Studios, the commercial arm of the BBC, spoke about Doctor Who following the release of the annual report. Fussell said BBC Studios were really committed to Doctor Who and are looking at ways we could bring the show to fans. He added, "Fans love the Doctor Who brand. It's been around since before I was in short trousers." I remember covering this comment. Commenting on the continuing uncertainty around the Disney Plus partnership, Fussell praised the streamer as a crucial partner to BBC Studios while adding, "We share a lot of the same values, so I'm really proud of the way that relationship has worked." So yeah, I covered that before, but the reason why this is significant, and the reason why this is a departure, and the reason why this is actually good news, is this part here. Doctor Who is going nowhere, Disney has been a great partnership with us, and it continues with The War Between Land and the Sea next year. Adding, "With or without Disney, Doctor Who will still be on the BBC." It's that with or without Disney part that's the part that I needed to hear. Now, I understand that negotiations are ongoing, and, you know, the BBC are going to want to keep their cards close to their chest in negotiations with Disney, but giving some kind of indication to fans that, yes, no matter what happens in these talks with Disney, there will be a form of Doctor Who that continues beyond this, is what I needed to hear. Because, and I've said this, I think it just gives fans a level of kind of certainty and, okay, if Disney goes, the whole enterprise doesn't just end. Because obviously there's been a lot of debate over whether BBC can finance it themselves, and obviously, you know, there's conversations about maybe getting another streamer involved. But it looks like, with or without Disney, they have contingencies. Whether that is producing it in-house, whether that is producing it with a Netflix, or HBO, or an Amazon, or whoever, there is actually, like, plans in place if the, in my opinion, somewhat inevitable happens at this stage and Disney decide not to renew. I do believe that Disney likely aren't going to renew. I think if they were going to, we'd have heard something by now. Obviously, talks are still ongoing, so maybe. I'm not going to completely rule out the possibility that Disney could re-up, but I just don't think that that's very likely. But the confirmation by the BBC themselves that the end of the Disney deal will not mean the end of Doctor Who is very good. And it also confirms here, interestingly as well, that The War Between the Land and the Sea is set to air next year. Now, there's been a bit of conflicting reporting on this. Doctor Who magazine said it would air this year, but now the BBC are saying that it will release next year. I am assuming that the reason why the release date for War Between Land and Sea is kind of as nebulous as it is because they were trying to see whether Disney sort of decided on a deal sooner, and if they did, obviously they could release it in 2025 because they'll have more time to get Doctor Who done the sooner Disney announce whether they're going to continue or not. But obviously, in the event that they don't, push it back to 2026, so you basically fill the gap here. So basically, it looks like 2026 is going to be basically like 2016, like the class year where we don't get a series of Doctor Who because things are still in production and there's a production pause, but we're going to get a spin-off, essentially. It's kind of funny that every 10 years that seems to happen, where we don't get a series of Doctor Who one year, but we do get some weird spin-off in the middle. So, at least there's that. And I mean, I've said before, I think that moving War Between to 2026 is the right decision. I think it makes sense to do that. It kind of means that, in a roundabout way, Russell can kind of claim that Doctor Who was on every year while he was showrunner. Obviously, it's not quite true because War Between isn't the same thing. But this is good news, I think, all around. The fact that they've said, yep, okay, so War Between is being delayed till next year, so we can fill out the gap. Obviously, negotiations are still ongoing and they don't have anything to share on the Disney front, unfortunately. But just the fact that they've said it will continue with or without Disney. And I know Russell has kind of indicated before that even if Disney collapsed, they would make Doctor Who. But Russell himself has also said that he is not part of the negotiations at the moment. And that's not a knock against him. But for me, it coming from the BBC themselves is more significant. Because at the end of the day, if Disney pull out, they're going to be the ones fronting the cash, unless they get another streamer, obviously. So it's more important to me that the BBC are saying, oh yeah, we'll still make Doctor Who with or without Disney. Obviously, it's nice that Russell's saying it, but Russell isn't as crucial to the talks, by his own admission. And, you know, that's not a slight against him, that's just the reality of it. I don't think the BBC have ever directly said that, like, yeah, we will continue making Doctor Who with or without Disney. Like, there's been people who've suggested that, but it's never kind of been said directly by the BBC. And that's kind of the thing that I wanted to hear directly from the horse's mouth, is we will still make it even if Disney are gone. And the fact that they've said that is good news to me. What form that'll take, how long that'll be, we don't know. I assume that they're moving the War Between into the 2026 slot so that they can maybe film stuff for 2027, but that's just speculation on my end. I wouldn't really see them getting a full series out for 2027, assuming that, like, obviously they're going to have to figure out who's producing it and the budget and all of that, but maybe we could see a couple of specials in 2027 akin to what we had for the 60th year. But I think for me, this has kind of put my fears to rest for the most part. Like, yes, we don't know what's happening with Disney. If you want my opinion, I think Disney are probably done with it. That's just my general kind of feeling at this point. If they weren't, I feel like they would have said something sooner. I guess if you were to be charitable to the perspective that Disney could be continuing, one could argue that by them delaying War Between to 2026, it indicates that they're not exactly, like, you know, wanting to dump the property immediately. Because let's think about this logically, right? If Disney were completely uninterested in continuing any partnership with Doctor Who, surely they would want War Between out as soon as possible so they can just, you know, wash their hands of it, be done with it. The fact that that's being pushed forward maybe allows longer for negotiations to go on. I don't know how long they need for negotiations, but I guess that's one thing you can say to the contrary. I'm still relatively of the belief that Disney are done, though. But the fact remains, they've said Doctor Who will continue on the BBC with or without them. But let me know what you guys think. I imagine that there are going to be some people saying, oh, it'll still be cancelled, but frankly, there's no indication of that. Like, there's no indication the BBC want to cancel it. There wasn't in the previous statement that we also covered in this video either. But the fact that they've said that it's going to happen with or without Disney, which is a new quote, is good news to me. But let me know what you guys think. Comment down below your thoughts. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you later.